Hey y'all, welcome to my end of week 9 video. Today I'm going to talk about how to manage your ego and not let it get in the way when you're making hard and big decisions. But first, before I get started, let's show you where I am today. I am still in Cartagena. I am on this beautiful island. Check it out. It's this pretty cool. It's this small island off of the city itself. I forget the name of the island itself. I'll post in the video afterwards, but the resort I'm staying on is called Blue Apple, and it's just this you're gonna hear birds throughout this whole time. It's like this small remote island right on the water, beautiful pool. We stayed in these little kind of huts. It's been amazing, really relaxing. I would totally recommend going to Cartagena to visit, especially for a long weekend beach vacation. It's just been great. But anyway, first time tuning in, I am traveling for a year with a program called Remote Year. Every month I am living and working remotely from a different country across the world. And you are catching me at the beginning of my 3rd month, the end of week 9, where I've been doing weekly videos sharing what I've been learning as I've been traveling, how I've been growing as a person, and hopefully sharing some fun facts back for other people to think about in their own lives as well. So like I said, end of week 9, this is the first week of my 3rd month. I am actually living in Medellin, Colombia. However, I've been traveling towards the end of week 9 and heading into week 10 around Cartagena to visit my parents. And like I said, this week I want to talk a little bit about ego and how it can play a role in making decisions. So one thing I've been figuring out while I'm on Remote Year is how I am going to work and make a living. I'm thinking I might need to move my video location based on what's happening over here, so give me a minute. Okay, I'm back. Just a minor hiccup. So yeah, ego and how it can unexpectedly play a role in decisions coming up. So one thing I've been figuring out over the last 2.5 months on Remote Year so far is what I want to do for work. I work as a product manager. I've been working at startups for the last few years, always full-time, always in person, and I do love my job as a product manager, but obviously Remote Year requires you to work remotely, and I also wanted to use it as a chance to try out other types of work, sticking mostly with product and in the tech startup space, but maybe working on multiple different projects instead of one, maybe trying freelancing, just different ways to do the similar type of work I was doing. But unexpectedly, I actually got a job offer last week from a company that I've been working with on a contract basis. And so I'm going to talk about my decision-making process there because it was really interesting. So I came on Remote Year with different priorities for what I normally do when it comes for work. The past actually my whole career, I've been very focused on kind of the traditional, thinking that it's important to climb the ladder, every job should pay me more than my last one, motivated by a lot of external motivators, and not really realizing that I was. So one of the things with Remote Year was kind of resetting my brain and saying, I don't need to judge myself against the ways that people traditionally do. All I need to judge myself against is the things that matter to me. And one of the benefits of Remote Year is coming from living in New York City. Cost of living, traveling the world for a year is significantly cheaper than living in New York. And my priorities changed because I want to take advantage of traveling and getting experiences here for the year. So work is still important to me, but it's equally important to me to have flexible hours, to be able to work remotely, obviously, to be able to have time to experience all of these things, which you can watch some of my other videos. I actually don't think that takes away from my work. I actually think it lifts everything up because it creates inspiration in different ways, but I'm not going to get into that. But so coming into the program, basically my priorities for work were, 1, does it let me continue to do Remote Year for the year? 2, does it allow me somewhat of a flexible schedule so I can take in all the experiences here that I want to? 3, does it pay me enough to cover the remote year costs, which is a significantly lower amount of money than what I would traditionally be looking for if I had to still be in New York. And then 4 and 5 kind of obviously are about the job itself. I do want to do work that continues to grow me as a product manager, that challenges me, that I learn from. And I knew that. I know these are my priorities. I've written them down. I've talked about them. And then as soon as I got this job offer, my ego and like my mentality that I'm used to for the last 10 years just like took straight over. My immediate reaction was, how can I get more money? What's my title? What's gonna matter? Da 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 da. And my brain just like went straight there. And it took me a minute to realize what was happening, which was, even though I have done a good job of setting my priorities, kind of getting out of the environment I'm used to, readjusting my mind, like as soon as I got back into a situation that my brain is used to in my previous environment, it just went to my normal patterns, and my ego wanted to know, how can I make sure I'm getting as much money as possible? How can I make sure these people aren't taking advantage of me, swindling me? How can I get the best title possible? It's just like all of these things that weren't actually on my original priority list. So 3 things that helped me get through making sure I wasn't letting my ego drive this decision, because we can't get rid of our ego. We're humans. This is normal, but we can manage it. So the first tip is just recognizing that it's there. Being aware of what's going on in your mind, listening to your mind, and not getting mad at it, not shutting it down, but just recognizing it. So the first step for me was saying, interesting, why am I focusing on these things? What's driving this here? Are these things that I really matter? And just like listening to the reaction that's going on in my brain, my heart, and my whole body. So first thing, recognizing that ego is there. It's not about ignoring it or pushing it down. It's about working with it and recognizing it. Second thing, like I've mentioned my priorities a few times, is anchoring yourself to your priorities. Ego will blind you and kind of like fully take over if you let it. So make sure you take the time to understand what is important to you as a person, and I recommend you do this by yourself. It's good to talk to people, but I can be really easily influenced by other people's opinions, especially when I'm making like a hard decision. So by myself, make sure I'm clear on what my priorities are. They can change every year, they can change with every decision, but take the time to write down what matters to you, so then when you're back in the situation of talking to people, making the final decision, you're not fully blinded by your feelings and your ego and your emotions in the minute. You have this hard list of, does it match these priorities? And also, I think it's important, if it's possible, to kind of set those priorities before big decisions come up. So like every 6 months of the year, you kind of know what's most important to you, and you can come back to them when big decisions come up, rather than only thinking about them in the heat of the moment. And 3, I think this can differ for everyone. Everyone has different methods, but 3 for me, writing is really important. So writing is a process that allows me to take everything that's going on in my head, I have so many thoughts, and just get it out. So anytime I'm going through a big decision like this, I take my journal, I go sit somewhere, and I just write. And it doesn't need to make sense, it doesn't need to be cohesive. I have no rules about what I write. The only rule is what's in my head, get it on paper. So like thoughts swirling around about my fear, like I guess not fear, but my challenges of negotiation, my fears of taking the job, not taking the job, my concerns about money or not money. Anything that's swirling around in my head, I write it down, and by the end of my writing sessions, I realize, 1, my head is clearer, and 2, I've usually come to some kind of conclusion of, just asking myself questions over and over again. Why do you think negotiating this salary is important to you? What actually matters to you? Oh, interesting. Why are you feeling that way about the salary itself? And by the time I've asked myself so many questions, I kind of get to the root of it, and it just helps with my thinking process so much. Maybe for you, writing isn't your thing. Maybe it's talking to yourself in your room. Maybe it's recording something, watching it back. Maybe you do have one trusted person you really like to talk to. I'm a fan of writing, but I'm sure I'm biased. But it really helps me in this situation get clarity and not be driven by my animal ego instinct. guess I don't know if it's like an animal instinct, but I just said that. So yeah, those are my 3 tips this week for not letting yourself be fully driven by your ego when making important decisions to you. 1, recognize it's there, recognize your ego exists, be aware of it. Number 2, be clear on what your priorities are. If possible, be clear on those even before big decisions come up. But if not, at least take the process to go through it on your own. Be clear about those so you can use them as a meter, a measuring stick to check your final decision against. And 3, find a method that works for you to clear your brain, start thinking more clearly, and kind of get all of the noise that I think we're so used to having just from other people's opinions, society's opinions, all these things. For me, it's writing. It can be whatever works for you. And anytime that you have a big decision coming into your life, something unexpected, or maybe a big decision you've been seeking out, take a step through these 3 take a walk through these 3 steps. Hopefully they help you out like they have helped me in this big decision in week 9 of remote year. So that's the end of my week 9 reflections. I need to get better at saying if you liked this video, if you found it helpful at all, please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button. I would also really love to hear your thoughts on the content. I'm gonna try to get better at having one clear topic each week that is related to self-improvement, what I'm learning as I go, but specifically something that I think could help other people who are watching. So I would love to hear your thoughts on any big decisions you're going through in your life right now, and what you're struggling with them, and if you do think ego is playing a role in them or not, how you're managing it, and would just love to hear more about what's going on in your life. So please comment if you have any thoughts on what I've talked about. Otherwise, I'll see you at the end of next week, week 10, my halfway point through Medellin, Colombia. Have a great day.